drug argument is complete nonsense. The real argument is oil and and destabilization for the entire region, and also moving them forcibly because of this destabilization away from dealing with China directly. Okay? That's the real reason why they're doing this. That's the American national security interest here. It's oil, it's gold, it's all the fucking natural resources that Machado says she is going to sell at, bargain bin basement prices to Western capital in exchange for her sitting on the seat of power in Venezuela. And that's it. And also, not having any sort of positive relationships with China or Russia or any of America's foreign adversaries. Okay? But the larger challenge posed by Maduro's regime is that it is both an importer and exporter of stability. An importer because the regime's close economic strategic ties to China, Russia, and Iran. Why wouldn't they have close strategic ties to China, Russia, and Iran? America has never even attempted to have a decent relationship with any of these countries. What is this? What is this? Why aren't you answering my question? Are you on the Ukrainian front lines right now? What is this? What is this? What is this? What? Figured you would pivot? Why are you guys arguing amongst one another about Venezuela from the perspective of Russia and Ukraine? Genuinely asking here, what is the basis behind the whole drug propaganda? How is it markedly untrue? I think Trump wanted to tie it to like whatever he ran on during the election. But the Rose Cartel or whatever was like a fucking made up thing, I think like many decades prior to this. And they just unearthed that bullshit as a reason to claim that Venezuela and its like military and its leadership is engaged in drug trafficking. They think that it's a better way to argue to go to war with Venezuela, to claim that it's actually responsible for the fentanyl deaths in the United States of America. It's no different than claiming that Trinidad is basically MS-13. It's bullshit. Is this just rage bait being on the New York Times, or are there genuine hog readers? No, the New York Times, or at least Brett Stevens' role in the New York Times is to specifically do this. Anytime America is like trying to invade another country, Brett Stevens and many other, intelligent right-wingers have to come out and say how good this is. Someone has to do the propaganda. Someone has to do the dirty work. And Brett Stevens has a long track record of doing exactly this dirty work for every single dirty war that America is engaged in. Like, neocon New York Times columnist Brett Stevens has been wrong pretty much about everything in his entire career. He obediently regurgitated CIA lies to justify every U.S. war of aggression against Iraq, Libya, Syria, and Iran. Now he's calling for the overthrowing of Venezuela's government in yet another U.S. imperial war based on lies. No amount of bloodshed will ever be enough for these neo-colonial warmongers. Their goal is to topple every last independent government until the U.S. empire controls the entire world. In other words, they want a global imperial dictatorship, which they ironically claim to be based on freedom and democracy. The case for overthrowing Maduro. 20 years on, I don't regret supporting the Iraq war, Brett Stevens says. The Syria opportunity. Israel had the courage to do what needed to be done. Yeah. Opinion, how to choke Iraq. Bomb North Korea before it's too late. Bomb Syria, even if it's illegal. Bombing Iraq isn't enough. By Bill Kristol. American bombs made Iraq stronger, by Ronald Steele. To stop Iran's bomb Iran. John Bolton. Look at the many familiar names and faces. The connection between the Fort Bragg cartel and the Department of War. I mean, this is actually a good article. Yeah, Bill Kristol, ironically, is way more woke now than all of these other guys, which is the weird thing here. But yeah, old Bilbo Crystal. I just received information that Venezuela is days away from developing a nuke. Yeah. Anyway, the alleged National Guard shooter now faces a murder charge, U.S. attorney
After
says,
one of the soldiers died.
one of the two National Guardsmen that he shot succumbed to her wounds and died. So there's that.
Investigators executed a search warrant at the suspect's apartment in Bellingham, Washington State, about 80 miles north of Seattle Thursday. The Afghan national served with a CIA-backed unit during the Afghanistan war. Authorities are still searching for a motive behind Wednesday's ambush-style attack. 20-year-old specialist Sarah Beckstrom died from her injuries. 24-year-old U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf remains in critical condition. Nicole Skanga is following the investigation. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning, Lindsay. Intelligence analysts are combing through the suspect's digital footprint for any signs of foreign influence or radicalization. So far, sources tell CBS News there have been no confirmed links to extremist networks. The suspect remains in the hospital on a ventilator, which is creating challenges for investigators trying to probe him for information.
New video of the ambush shows the suspected gunman raise his revolver as a National Guard member sprints down the street. Seconds later, returning fire.
Somebody drove across the country, came to Washington, D.C. to attack America.
Officials tell CBS News the 29-year-old suspect carried that gun, registered to a deceased man in Washington State, thousands of miles cross-country. 29-year-old Rahmanallah Lochinwall served for 8 years on a CIA-backed Zero unit.
CIA trained him well, right? I mean, yeah, this is a CIA-trained killer, yes.
Paramilitary force fighting the Taliban. U.S. and Afghan officials tell CBS News he suffered from PTSD as a result of his experiences.
There are certainly many more charges to come.
The suspect now faces first-degree murder charges. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey.
I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are very, very angry about what's happened, and they want to make sure that justice is done. And
Do you believe the death penalty should be pursued?
look, I think when people commit
Hogs in America, there's hogs everywhere. There's always going to be people that go, no, this is awesome. We will welcome them as liberators. Of course, their attitude will shift very quickly once the bombs start fucking flying, but, you know. Why do you think this invasion will be so special? Wait, oh, this person is unironically saying it's good. As soon as they kill Maduro? Wait, you think that... Oh, chatter. I thought this person was saying, like, no, Venezuela is not Iraq. Like, America wouldn't dare try to bomb Venezuela. It turns out he was just saying, no, Venezuela is not Iraq. This time it'll be fine. Yeah, Blowback Season 8 incoming. There's always a guy that has this mentality. Hey, guys, I know that American imperialism is a litany of failures, right? And has led to significant amounts of blowback and hatred and animosity and destabilization that is horrible for every region that we've decided to implement a grand design over. But this time, it'll be different. All those previous wars were bad, but this time, let me tell you why it's good. Okay, let me tell you why it's good.
Maduro perhaps, and this is the speculation, perhaps to sit down and negotiate his withdrawal from power.
And up until this point, any sign that this pressure that the U.S. government has been trying to put on Venezuela has worked?
None whatsoever, none that we can certainly measure. They've said that they will not cave in to this kind of pressure.
This war will destabilize the entire Middle Eastern region and set off a global shockwave of anti-Americanism versus no, it won't. Published in March 26, 2003 on The Onion. Okay? George W. Bush may think that a war against Iraq is the solution to our problems, but the reality is it will only serve to create far more. This war will not put an end to anti-Americanism. It will fan the flames of hatred even higher. Counterpoint, no, it won't. It just won't. None of that will happen. You're getting worked up over nothing. Everything's going to be fine. So just relax, okay? You're really overreacting. This war will not put an end to anti-Americanism. It will fan the flames of hatred even higher. It won't. It will harden the resolve of Arab states to drive out all Western influence. Not really. A war against Iraq is not only morally wrong, it will be an unmitigated disaster. Sorry. It is crazy. I cannot believe it, dude. It's just, I just can't believe that there are still Americans out there who just look at the situation and go, yeah, but this time it'll be different, I think. What leads you to believe that this time it's going to be different? What leads you to believe that? Like, what leads you to even have any confidence whatsoever that the American government does stuff like this for you? Okay? When the last 20 years, the last 30 years have been nothing but pain and suffering and material conditions worsening for you, while America has done this all around the world over and over again. What leads you to believe that this is going to be any different? Donald Trump said Friday that he had sort of made up his mind about his plan for Venezuela, but he can't tell you what it would be with an aircraft carrier strike group and some 15,000 service personnel deployed to the region. It's sort of hard to imagine that the president's decision will be to stand down and go home. Okay? What is this? Why were you so sure about Russia not invading Ukraine, but now so sure that the U.S. does want to invade Venezuela? Do you consider Russia less imperialist than the U.S.? Brother, the very same reasons as to why I think it was a fucking spectacular failure and would cause unimaginable pain is the very same reason why I'm saying I hope America doesn't invade. I did not want Russia to invade Ukraine, just like I do not want America to invade Venezuela. Jesus Christ. I can't believe people still hold on to this fucking thing, especially when every other thing that I've said about Ukraine has literally happened. Whether it be the massive amounts of death and destruction that will befall both the Ukrainian side and the Russian side, the animosity, and also additional support for NATO in general, all of that came true. It was, in many respects, a gift to the Biden administration, especially in terms of like hardening their position and support for NATO. You got two new countries that are also a part of NATO now, and Donald Trump can just come in and say, yeah, 5% of your GDP should be spent on U.S. manufactured weapons, or at least your own domestic weapons manufacturing industries. I like that the NatSec NATO lovers refuse to entertain every single point that I've said where Ukraine has the maximum leverage now. They should actually immediately implement some sort of ceasefire negotiation. They've been consistently wrong since then, but they still always go back to, well, you said Russia would never invade Ukraine. You're fucking stupid. Yeah, my mistake for assuming that foreign adversaries also behave in a rational manner. What about all the fucking Ukraine is going to win and purge the Russian orcs from their fucking national boundaries any day now, guys? What happened? They've spent the last fucking 3 years saying that was going to happen, and it seems to have not happened. Why don't you go get mad at them for a little bit, for a change? Any day now. Manhattan Institute says yeah, the irony is also, I think, like, it was a miscalculation, and that there is like people who cope on the pro-Russian side, or at least like on the campus side, will say, no, Putin never had an ambition to like take over Kyiv, right? And he actually just simply wanted Eastern Ukraine. That's cope. That's bullshit. Okay? I do believe that Putin was also misinformed and thought that it would be much simpler to overtake Ukraine. Maybe a little bit more difficult than taking over Crimea, or just like marching over and just like militarily annexing Crimea. But it would be a successful military operation, a successful special military operation nonetheless. Maybe it wouldn't be 2 weeks, maybe it'd be a month. But it was very clear that Ukrainian defenses were far better than they had previously assumed, that they were not able to immediately implement air superiority over the entire country, for example. Okay? You may be shocked to hear this, but everyone in Venezuela I know is tired of waiting and wants U.S. military action as soon as possible to end Maduro once and for all. Their problem isn't the United States. They want America to intervene. The problem is 26 years of socialism. Thank you, Danielle DiMartino of the Manhattan Institute. Mr. Trump, my people yearn for bombs. I am, of course, in New York, but my friends in Caracas are demanding Tomahawk missiles take out their apartment complexes immediately. Thoughts from a friend in Venezuela wanting regime change. I really wish something would happen soon. I can't sleep from thinking about it, waiting for the moment, and I get frustrated that nothing happens quickly enough. And if there is change, the days will be incredibly difficult, but after the storm, there will eventually be calm. This is just one opinion, not suggesting 100% of Venezuelans feel the same. This guy's in his 20s, a student from a poor background. His family and neighborhood used to support Chavez and Maduro, but now barely any do. A couple of people in his extended family are still Maduro voters. If Trump heard that Maduro is bigger than Arnold Palmer, do you think he'd resolve this conflict with a bit of Kirk diplomacy? No. If you are wondering why anytime America's invested in like destabilizing a foreign country, a foreign adversary, the only voices that you hear are expats or people just like living in America that are demanding more and more bombing of said country. This is part of the reason why America actually brings a shit ton of people from said country that they want to destabilize. It's always the same, whether it be Cuba, whether it be Venezuela, whether it be Iran. My people yearn for freedom. Freedom at the end of a American Tomahawk missile.
Reached out to their closest allies, that is Russia and China, for help, but both have been rather lukewarm and certainly have not come out publicly to say that they would stand up and by Venezuela's side, especially militarily, if there were to be increased military action around and inside of Venezuela.
Has Venezuela taken any sort of preparatory action in case this were to escalate? We know that the U.S. has amassed more than a dozen warships and thousands of...
Here we go. I very much appreciate and respect the determination by President Trump to deal with the drug caliphate countries that inhabit our backyard, chief among them Venezuela. For over a decade, Maduro has controlled a narco-terrorist state that is poisoning America, and he has created alliances with international terrorist organizations like Hezbollah. He is an illegitimate leader who has been indicted for drug trafficking in U.S. courts and maintains control of Venezuela by a reign of terror. Narco drug trafficking hub and a drug caliphate, an Islamic style drug dealing situation happening in Venezuela. President Trump's strong commitment to end this madness in Venezuela will save countless of American lives and will give the beautiful people of Venezuela a new lease on life. I hear Turkey and Iran are lovely this time of year. Yeah, the socialist drug Sharia caliphate of Vuvuzeller.
Troops in the region. They're branding their operation as an Operation Southern Spear. That's what they're calling it. What has Venezuela done to prepare?
Venezuela has, from the very beginning, when this was not, when this was just a few U.S. boats and troops around the area shooting and destroying.
What does he mean by I hear Turkey and Iran are lovely this time of year? He's saying Maduro needs to immediately escape to Iran or Turkey in order to avoid a land invasion of Venezuela.
Boats that were allegedly carrying drugs in the area, it began to mobilize its army, began to mobilize ordinary people, teaching them how to be prepared for an invasion, that sort of thing, which we have seen in Venezuela over the decades. This is not new. The real question is Venezuela really in a position to defend itself, whether to be military action from the United States? I'm sure they would resist. But the strategy, according to people who are in the know, both there and abroad, is that this is to tell the Venezuelan military that they should now withdraw their support for Maduro and that there will be no sanctions taken against them if they do that. This is what we have been hearing now for at least a month. This is for them to desert, basically, Nicolás Maduro and the upper echelons of the military forces of Venezuela so that there will be regime change. That seems to be really the end game.
Okay, thank you. Lucia, we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much for that reporting from Santiago in Chile.
The man accused of shooting 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. is now facing a first-degree murder charge.
Is this why she received the Peace Prize? Yes, as I told you at the time. The reason why she fucking received the Nobel Peace Prize is for this reason. Anyway, Brett Stevens says, I've been outspoken in calling the administration to act against Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship in Caracas.
The most grievous of crimes, that the death penalty should always be on the table.
CBS News has obtained this photo taken when the alleged gunman first entered the U.S. in 2021 through a Biden-era program dubbed Operation Allies Welcome. But he was granted asylum last April. In Washington, dozens of emergency vehicles processed downtown, carrying the body of 20-year-old Army specialist Sarah Beckstrom in the pre-dawn hours Friday, as National Guardsmen line the streets to salute one of their own.
It's a tragedy.
Marcy Vaughn worked with Beckstrom at a West Virginia behavioral health center.
Her coworkers will tell you that she had a great sense of humor. She liked to laugh.
Beckstrom's father, Gary, mourned her passing on social media, writing, "My baby girl has passed to glory."
I'm trying to send a message that West Virginians are going to stand strong behind the Guard, behind these families, and behind these people, these brave, courageous, young men and women.
As the state grieves a national tragedy.
Governor Morrissey also told us that Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf is fighting for his life. The governor would not rule.
10 to 15 years down the line, maybe we'll have some CIA-backed death squads from Venezuela that we bring into the United States of America after the civil war ends in Venezuela and the Venezuelans actually purge or force the United States occupation to leave Venezuela. And then those guys will end up doing similar things on U.S. soil when they also have a really hard time surviving and are crippled with PTSD that they have from all the unimaginable crimes that they did at the behest of the CIA and American imperialism. But this time it will be different, okay? It'll be different. It will be Venezuelan style, which is totally different.
Out sending more guardsmen to Washington, D.C., but says right now he's focused on the families. Vlad.
Yeah, and sending prayers to both of those families. Nicole Skanka for us in Washington. Thanks, Nicole. President Trump is intensifying his immigration crackdown after his administration says the National Guard shooting suspect should have never been allowed in the U.S. Trump is spending the holiday weekend at his Florida resort. Weijia Jiang is traveling with the president. Weijia, good morning.
Good morning to you, Vlad, and good morning to everybody. In response to that shooting, President Trump has announced new policy proposals to curb immigration, even threatening to expel migrants who are already here in the United States, who are not a, quote, net asset to the country.
President Trump blames the Biden administration for allowing the shooting suspect into the U.S.
There was no vetting or anything. They came in unvetted. And we have a lot of others in this country. We're going to get them out.
CBS News' Nancy Cordes pressed Trump on what his own administration found about the more than 76,000 Afghan nationals who entered the U.S. after the chaotic end to the Afghan war in 2021.
Your DOJ IG just reported this year that there was thorough vetting by DHS and by the FBI of these Afghans who were brought into the U.S. So why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let them in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here. And you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person.
The Department of Homeland Security now says it will be reviewing all asylum cases approved under the Biden administration. And officials tell CBS News the Trump administration has directed that all current asylum decisions be paused. A DHS official tells CBS News the suspect's asylum case was approved under the Trump administration earlier this year.
When it comes to asylum, when they're flown in, it's very hard to get them out.
Trump also announced he would permanently pause migration from, quote, third world countries and called for a review of all green card holders from 19 countries of concern, including Haiti, Iran, and Afghanistan. Sean Van Diver is an advocate for...
Column I wrote in January ran under the headline, Depose Maduro. With war looming, possibly within days, it's worth making the case again and thinking through the ways it could go wrong. Let's take it point by point. Is there a vital American interest at stake? There is, and it's not just the one the administration keeps talking about, drugs. Not that there's much doubt that the regime is deeply implicated in the drug trade. Yes, there is much doubt. What are you saying? The reason why it's a Wall Street Journal article that is annotated in this fucking op-ed and not the New York Times article is because the New York Times article openly and clearly states that there is no evidence that there is any sort of serious drug trafficking taking place within Venezuela, okay? As someone who has written an op-ed for the New York Times, let me tell you, New York Times loves hyperlinks that go back to New York Times articles. It means that they can't actually hyperlink a New York Times article here, so they had to go with the fucking Wall Street Journal dish rag. Okay? Trust me. The most careful analysis I know of, a 2022 report by the Insight Crime think tank, knows that the principal role of the president and his henchmen is to ensure the drug trafficking systems functions. Yeah, this is fucking bullshit. Okay? It's bullshit.